growing into adulthood. It's funny, we get to become adults like after 18, and somehow we think we should have all of everything we need to be an adult. But being an adult is a growing process and a learning process, and it takes time and it takes a few other things. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is growing into adulthood. And the reason why I wanted to do this podcast is because my kids just moved out. So I'm now an empty nester. And also what else inspired me is I was recently in Colombia, South America, and there's so many beautiful plants, and each plant is so different. And that's how I feel like each of my children are and each of us are. It's like we're different plants and we're beautiful in our own way. But it takes a bit for us to grow the best way we can. And some of those things that we need are some soil. You know, obviously the seed, in order to grow, we need some water, sunshine, and some time. So we're going to use that analogy and talk about adulting and adulthood. So first we're going to talk about soil. And I feel like the soil is kind of the dirt, the crap, kind of like our childhoods and our surroundings. And it's really interesting just to look at that. So unfortunately, I trained my children to be overly kind and giving and somewhat perfectionistic. It was a religious household, which was not helpful in a lot of ways. And now we're divorced parents and we have two different lifestyles and philosophies. Where I still love God and Jesus, I definitely look at things very differently. And I'm definitely not a perfectionist and all of those things anymore, or a goodist, which we'll talk about next week. Perfectionism and goodism, the evil sisters. So we all have our childhood, our dirt, and it's so good to kind of know our dirt and figure out which are going to be nutrients that are actually going to help us and which is the crap that doesn't serve us. And it's interesting that different seeds, like different individuals, will be affected differently by the same soil. And so, you can talk to each of my children, except 4 of them, and ask them, like, what did they think of their childhood? What did they get that was helpful? What wasn't helpful? And you'd think they were talking about 4 different families, but it's just different seeds affected by different dirt. And I think it's so important to be curious about our dirt, where we were raised, how we grew up, and what we want to get from our childhood, what's actually going to serve us, and really reform the stories so that we're not in a victim, because I really do believe that everything God gives us, we can be used for good if we love Him, and that's a promise He's given us. So even all that, whatever crap, we can transform the story so we are victors and learners from those things that we didn't always choose. So that's always good. Another thing is nowadays, now that we're in the dirt, it's important that we adjust our dirt. We add nutrients that work best for us. We choose people and surroundings that are best for us. And we're each individual plants. And so I can't say, hey, this surrounding is best for you, or this surrounding is best for my kids, because it's their own choice and we are our own people and it will be affected differently. Again, it's just so important that we own our lives, and that allows us to own our future. And we really have to start with ownership. And then just expect some more dirt. I mean, unfortunately, we get dirt in our life. And so failing forward is so important, to just know that it is part of life to have challenges and to fail forward and learn from it, and let it be like what creates our dreams and our visions and our passions. Is sometimes it's the dirt, which is very interesting to me. So I definitely did not raise my kids in an environment that was supportive of failing. And, I could definitely see that and how that didn't serve them. And I'll be giving a copy of this episode to each of my kids. So that'll be good for them. And on the flip side, I did teach them to have high standards, and they're very capable. And it's important, sometimes I'll ask them, what did you learn? How did you fail and learn this week? And it's just so important to fail forward, and just expect that that's part of our lives, is to do that. So that's our dirt, the soil. Next is the seed. And guess what? We're the seed. We're our own unique, beautiful seed, one-of-a-kind seed. And sometimes we don't know how we're going to bloom and blossom, or what type of plant we are, until we're giving it the nutrients, the soil, the sunshine, the water, and everything, and see what happens. And it's so fun to kind of look at ourselves with curiosity and love, and just be curious to see who are we and what really lights us up and what really doesn't. What are we passionate about and what really upsets us? And really enjoy the way that we are unique and designed, and really learn to love ourselves and just embrace that. So I was talking to one of my kids, and he was talking about like the cringy past or the cringy parts of him. And I think it's just so important to embrace all the parts of us thus far. All the parts of us were doing the best that they could with what they knew. And really just to give grace and compassionate to all of those seasons in our lives. And really, honestly, if we don't shut those parts out, they have something to always teach us and learn. We can learn. It's just way better if we embrace all of our, what we would consider the cringy parts or something like that, and embrace that. And then, as a seed or as our own people, there's a couple things that are so important. I talk a lot to my kids, since I've been divorced, it's been a completely different retraining, as much as I can, because, when I got divorced, my youngest was 8. And so, there's only so much training you can do, and the most is living by example. But I really talk about the importance of feeling our feelings and knowing the language of our bodies, because I feel like in our society, we're so head focused, but our body, our subconscious has all this information, and really to be learning to listen to that, be willing to listen to what it's signaling to us in our bodies, and really be connected. I always tell my kids, first 5 counseling sessions on me. And it's true. I just feel like with feelings, you don't have to stuff them or ignore them or judge them or react to them. It's very easy growing up in a quote unquote Christian household to be like, oh, I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be lustful. I shouldn't be, rather than being like, hey, I'm a human and I'm feeling these feelings and this is what I'm feeling. And just to be okay with being curious about our feelings and to allow them. And then it's so good because our feelings give us information. And so, if we follow the seeds to our feelings, then we can figure out the thoughts that are creating those feelings, or we can figure out about ourselves. And so it's so important to be curious and listening to the seeds of our feelings to figure out who we are and listen to our thinking that's affecting it. So super important. And also, a lot of us it's very easy to want to buffer when we're feeling uncomfortable feelings. And buffering is where the seeds of addiction can come in, or the weeds near our plant, where they, promise like some soothing, but they eventually take our life force. They eventually take from us what we need. And those are the weeds and buffering. And there's lots of things we buffer with, but in the end, they all soothe, but they all deplete us in the end. But there's like alcohol, just casual sex, but it could be so many different things. It could be working, workaholic. It could be anything that's keeping us from feeling our feelings. It could be eating. It could be going to church and praying, but not wanting to feel how we're feeling. And a really good test to be like, hey, am I processing my feelings? Is for us to just be still, be quiet, and see, are we at peace? Have we processed that emotional cup of feelings? Or is it very unsettling? I know when I was their age, it was very hard for me to just be quiet and still. Because I didn't process my feelings. I didn't even have I didn't have the tools for that. So it's really important to learn the tool of feeling our feelings in our body and exploring them and being like, oh, that's what shame feels like, and this is where it's feeling. And those feelings, once we process them and allow them, will dissipate. So it's really amazing. And then along with that, feeling our feelings is thinking, or basically we have our thinking, but we need to understand that our thoughts aren't us. We get to choose our thoughts, and we don't have to believe everything we think. We can, honestly, we all think some of the stupidest, craziest shit. And it just is part of our human experiences. We get weird thoughts from all sorts of different places. But what we choose to believe about ourselves and what we choose to believe about those thoughts, that's what becomes true. That's what we start to live. So whatever we're thinking on is what we end up living. And that's why my favorite verse in the Bible talks about, think about whatever is true, noble, honorable, trustworthy, because those are the things that grow us. And it's not to deny anything that's not going well or anything honest thinking, but it really does know that we can listen to our thinking and choose our thinking and really figure out if our thinking is congruent with us and if our thinking is serving us and helping us. And so that's why I talk about in the Barf Notebook a lot in the Unravel book that I wrote on Amazon is you got to barf out those feelings and get the emotion out and sort it out and plan it out. And that's just a really great process to sort through our emotion and have emotional intelligence. So that's the seed. We're all the seed, and being able to feel our feelings and think our thinking is how to help us as a seed. Our emotional cups can get full without us really even being aware of it. But when our emotional cups get full, we can react rather than respond. We can be fatigued. We can feel burdened. We have struggle with sleep. We can have physical symptoms. And that's why I have the free Barf Notebook page for you. And it's a simple process done regularly where you're barfing out your thoughts, sorting them out, and planning them out. And it's a wealth of healing in that. So go ahead and check the link and have access to that free Barf Notebook process. Live brighter every day. And then third is some water. We all, a plant needs water. And what I think of as water is love and respect and care for ourselves. And that is so necessary for our growth. And I feel like that's exactly what God says. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind and strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So it really does start by loving ourselves. And what that looks like practically, what I'd want to tell my kids is you got to appreciate yourself, because out of appreciating yourself, you can appreciate others more. And appreciating yourself and not comparing, talking to ourselves with kindness, talking to ourselves like we would talk as a friend. And I just had to cut off any talk that I would not talk to as a friend and just say, yeah, I'm not going to talk to myself that way. That's not okay. And learning to advocate for ourselves. Holy cow, that is a learned thing. And I would definitely say when the kids were young, I did not train them to do that. And then showing up for ourselves and keeping our own promises. It's easy to show up for others, or typically easier, but really giving that same respect to ourselves and doing what we want to do and showing up like we want to for ourselves is super important. Part of advocating is having boundaries. And again, that's a skill. We have to learn to be nice, but we also have to learn to be firm. We have to know how to be loving, and we have to know how to have boundaries. We have to understand our wants, needs, and desires and be able to speak them clearly. I can't tell you how hard it was to speak my wants, needs, and desires clearly and deal breakers. I still struggle with that. It's okay, is this the clearest way I can be speaking? Because wow, I have got all sorts of things, in my own past about not speaking clearly and the problem with that. So if we want to be, we need lots of water in order to grow. And that is that love and that respect for ourselves. But I think about having boundaries is, again, a skill, and being able to say things like, hey, I would really like that, or I prefer that. I hear what you're saying, but that doesn't work for me. I hear what you're saying, but I see things differently. And then, or I see what you're saying and I'm on a different page, or I don't want that. And then to be firm with people. And I think my kids right now would find this very difficult to just say, no, stop, don't do that. You need to just stop. And I think they would call that being a Karen. But there is a place and time. It is super important to have that skill to know how to be firm when needed. And it seems to be a rare time, but that skill has to be there. And it's super important. Then the fourth thing we need is sunshine. And I really feel like that's just, our soul loving God and God loving us. And it's really basking in the sunshine and whether you call God source or universe, but it's a very loving, appreciative, warm light. And letting that infuse ourselves, having that personal relationship with that light where we're conversing and enjoying each other. This is one thing that's kind of interesting having my kids in a religious background or household is two of them, they really thought, loving God was about rules and regulations, which makes me, obviously grieves me because honestly, that's kind of just the opposite. That's, that is what I would call religion. Whereas God really, when you look at the personhood of Jesus and, Jesus being God, it's really about relationship. It's all about relationship. And you can't perform yourself into a relationship. We can never be good enough. It's more about experiencing it, being honest, in how we're feeling, and having that honesty between God and ourselves, and really just having a relationship that nurtures us, that feeds our soul. And we need that sunshine for our souls. And so just cultivating that relationship and experiencing it. And, God and soul source, he works in miraculous, amazing ways today. And just experiencing how he really sees us as his individual little kids that are about 3 to 5, and he just delights in us, and really basking in that, and appreciating and loving him. So sunshine, lots of sunshine. So, and the last thing we all need is a little time. So I really say, enjoy today and live for future you. That's how I balance, is what I'm doing today that I'm enjoying, is that what I really want? And it's good for me today, and it's even better for my future me. And so kind of balancing that, because if we enjoy too much today, we make tomorrow harder. But we focus too much on the future, then we can't enjoy the present. And so just allowing the time. So those are some things we need as we're growing in our adulthood journey. And I feel like it applies to all of us. It's always a good check-in. It's okay, how's my sunshine? How am I feeling a little depleted? Do I need to be connecting with God more and getting a little bit more sunshine? Or am I allowing weeds into my life that are promising me some soothing, but are depleting my energy, and where I'm at? So it's a good thing to be thinking about. So think back now for yourselves. It's when you think about, do you need some more water? Love, respect, and kindness for yourself? Is it more sunshine? Is it more just appreciating the seed of who you are? Is it the soil around you? And so just choose one thing. And the cool things is we can actually change our soil. We can change things for ourselves. And that is how we grow, is being in tune with ourselves as far as what we need. And it's very different for everyone. That's why I can't tell my kids, you need to do that, because in the end, they need to check in with themselves and be what they need. And I say that for all of us, is we really need to check what we need. And so just take a pause. I'm going to just take a deep breath and check in with yourself. One thing that would improve your adulthood journey, because it is a journey. So make it a great day. Shine brighter every day, 1% at a time. Take care.